Kia ora. So, triplets, amusement parks, and controversial scientists are at the heart of two Aotearoa novels that were longlisted for the Ockham New Zealand Book Awards this year. Just one of these overlapping elements would have been an amazing coincidence, but that all three there is nothing short of astonishing, and yet we understand they both wrote their novels on their own, in their own rooms, with their own desks and computers. And
we both used the same ChatGPT prompts.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What's Catherine writing at the moment?
Very nice. Good to know that, you see. They didn't mention that earlier, so we might change the whole discussion. So as you know, we've got here today Catherine Chidgey on the left, and then Tracy Farr to talk about their books, Book of Guilt and Wonderland, and hopefully we'll unearth what feeds these fertile imaginations and how they've managed to dream up such wonders. And ChatGPT, it is not. Definitely not. So Catherine is, according to Radio New Zealand, one of New Zealand's greatest living writers. That's pretty huge. Lovely, I agree. She's the author of nine award-winning best-selling novels, including Remote Sympathy, this thing is honestly, Pet, and The Axeman's Carnival. Her books are published globally and translated into several languages. She's been longlisted for the Women's Prize in the UK twice, shortlisted for the Dublin Literary Award, and is the only person to have won the Jan Medlicott Acorn Prize twice, and is shortlisted again. So it could be the three. Who knows? Very, very exciting, and we hear very soon this month. So no surprise that her latest novel, The Book of Guilt, sparked international bidding wars. Catherine lives in Hamilton. Do you still live there? Or
Cambridge.
Cambridge, sorry.
I've never lived in Hamilton.
Even as I wrote that, I thought, I'm not sure she lives there. But now we know. Tracy Farr, got to have one fact, not right. Tracy Farr is a writer who used to be a scientist. Born in Australia, she's lived on Te Motu Kairangi Miramar Peninsula in Wellington for 30 years. Her debut novel, The Life and Loves of Lena Gaunt, was long-listed for Australia's Miles Franklin Literary Award and shortlisted for the Barbara Jeffress Award. It and her second novel, The Hope Fault, were both published in Australia, UK and the US, with the latter translated into Italian. Her third novel, Wonderland, which we're here for today, won the 2024 NZSA Laura Solomon Cuba Press Prize and was published by the Cuba Press. And disclosure here, I'm her publisher, just so you know. Just so you know. Doesn't mean I know more about the book than any of you, to be honest. But, I just got to let that. It was in the Listeners' 100 Best Books and long-listed for the Jan Medlicott Acorn Prize. So, two powerhouse women, two powerhouse novels. I'm really looking forward to hearing about these books from you too. So let's say, I think we were going to start differently till I had a chat with you in the green room, and I suddenly thought, no, that's a kind of big place to start. So we're going to start with the triplets, which I think are fascinating to everyone. They have an inherent magic about them, triplets, don't they? The fact that they're kind of all the same, all three of a kind, but not. And you both have fun with that in your novels. Play with it, for example. We've got Ada, Una, and Hannah. And they're in Wonderland, and they're 7, and you've got the 13-year-old triplets, William, Vincent, Lawrence. So, for example, Catherine, you pop the boys in different colours, and you do a whole lot of interesting things, Tracy, overlapping the voices visually on the page. If you've read the book, you'll know how that works. Could we start talking about that, the fun of the triplets, how they work in a novel? I would say not easy to manage. Catherine?
My triplets are identical, and I think I really started considering using them in the novel when I was thinking, well, how on earth can I use my psychology degree that I did in the 1980s and 90s when I thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, and that went nowhere. It was disappointing to my parents that went nowhere. So I kind of felt the pressure to use it somehow. I figured out while I was doing that degree that, I'm actually not interested in, lots of statistics and maths. I'm interested in what makes people tick, and that's why I was drawn to psychology, and that's why I became a novelist. But the one thing that stayed with me from that study is, the old nature-nurture argument. And I was really interested in unpicking that in this novel with 3 boys who are identical, so alike that nobody can tell them apart, even their mothers. So they grow up in a boys' home in the New Forest in a version of 1979 England, and they're cared for by Mother Morning, Mother Afternoon, and Mother Night. And their mothers, since they were tiny babies, have dressed them in different colours so that they can differentiate them, and that's the only way they can tell them apart, usually. But the boys play with that, as twins and triplets do, and often they swap clothes and pretend to be each other. And the book is about figuring out who you are and figuring out what you are. The very first line of the book, which is the section from Vincent's point of view, is before I knew what I was, I lived with my brothers in a grand old house in the heart of the New Forest. And the book is really, Vincent figuring out what he is. And the fact that they're identical is a source of power for the triplets, in the sense that they can, pull the wool over the eyes of a lot of people when they're pretending to be each other. But it's also their source of weakness, in that in the book, all the children who stay or who grow up at these homes are very susceptible to an illness that they call the bug, and it can take many different forms, and it can kill, it can be fatal. But if the children survive the bug, then they can go to this amazing seaside resort of Margate and stuff themselves with candy floss all day and swim in the sea and go on the roller coaster and live this dream life. But the idea is that if one triplet recovers, or one twin, or one quadruplet recovers, then they all go to Margate. And if one child who has identical siblings commits some kind of indiscretion or crime, then they're all held responsible because they're genetically identical, and that's kind of the pseudoscience behind.
They're all at fault.
They're all at fault, yeah. So like I said, it is a source of power, but it's also a source of weakness.
The voice of your triplets is Vincent. He's
the voice is Vincent.
Who tells the story of the triplets, and he's always looking at himself and then in comparison with his 2 brothers. Yeah,
I was really interested in the sibling dynamic. So Vincent kind of, he's the main narrator in the book. There are sections by a character called the Minister of Loneliness, who is tasked with closing the homes and releasing the remaining children into the community. And then there's also Nancy, who's also 13 and has lived in complete secrecy in Exeter and has never been allowed outside the property by her parents. And gradually those 3 strands combine. But Vincent is the main narrator, and I see him as standing between the 2 poles of his brothers. So yes, they are genetically identical. They're identical to look at, but I wanted to be very careful to make them quite distinct characters. So William is a bit of a bastard.
Yeah.
Like he's quite cruel. It seems to be just in his nature that he's cruel, and he's cruel to Lawrence, but he's also quite cruel to Vincent, and yet Vincent loves him.
He's fascinated by him, really.
He loves him more than he loves Lawrence, and there is often, always, that unspoken dynamic in families where you have favourites, and you can't help who you love better. And so that's what I was kind of digging into with Vincent and William. And then there's Lawrence, kind of at the other end of the pole. He's very gentle and quiet and loves animals and nature and wants nothing more than to be a vet when he grows up. And you would think, and in fact my first instinct was that he and Vincent would share this really close, tender relationship. But that felt quite obvious and easy, and I never like taking the easy path in my books. I don't know about you, but I always like setting myself the most difficult task and taking the most difficult route. And so that's why I decided, no, it'll be Vincent and William who are closer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I love that dynamic, how he can't pull himself away from William, who's fascinated by it. Tracy, so yours, when dealing with your triplets, you have all three voices working together, which is fascinating, and I know quite a juggling act for you.
Yeah, so my triplets, so Catherine, your triplets are a we through Vincent's eyes, but then he can revert to the I as well. He can give us the I view, his I view. So my triplets are almost throughout the novel, not entirely, are always a we voice, a plural voice. So they can't, for most of the novel, there are moments when they gain their own voice, but for the most part, they're speaking as one. They're speaking as we, and so when they're talking about what each of them does, it will be we did a thing. Hannah did, and Ada did, and Una did. There's no I in there. And so I think it feels like a different reading experience as much as I can kind of extrapolate what it is to read my book without having written it. But it feels like a different reading experience. Yeah. So my triplets came from a different place as well. They didn't come from an unused psychology degree. They came from a couple of different places. So on page 1 of Notebook 1 for Wonderland, 1st of the 1st, 2016, I can see it in front of my eyes, I wrote, now, these two sisters, or are there three? And so by the end of that day, I had my three sisters. I decided that, yes, they were going to be triplets. I decided that, yes, they were going to be identical triplets. I knew their names. I knew their first names, their surnames. I knew their parents' names. And I knew that they belonged at this amusement park, Wonderland.
Did you think you lent into 3 because there's something magic about that? The other one?
Yeah, that very word is in the first paragraph on that page. I can see it again now. I'm having little seeing motions.
Flashback.
Something magical about 3. It's my third novel. But also I thought 3 gave more options than 2. With 3, there's always the possibility of 1 being excluded.
Yeah.
And 2 having their moment together and then that changing as well. So I liked that idea that we could have, it felt like it gave more possibilities. But yeah, 3 is a magical number. It's a fairy tale number. I just was just back then about to publish my second novel, which was a lot about fairy tale and stories and a kind of magic of storytelling. So I was thinking in fairy tale kind of tropes as well. But one of the places that the sisters came from is that I love writing about things that I don't understand, and I don't understand sisters. I am a sister, but I don't have sisters, and it fascinates me, that relationship. It's like I see friends who have sisters, and it's a very, to me, weird. Sorry, but because they don't understand it. So it's so foreign to me. I love writing about things I don't understand, to try and understand them or to try and get under the hood. But then I'd also, in 2015, I saw an exhibition at City Gallery by an artist called Candice Breitz, Breitz, and she works mainly in video. And one of her, this particular work was called Factum, and she had video, like full size, bigger than full size, portrait mode videos of triplets and twins, identical triplets and twins. Some were, I think the youngest set of triplets were 19, the oldest set of twins were in their 70s, I think. And so she interviewed them separately, wearing the same, the twins and triplets wearing the same clothes in the same setting, and then afterwards she edited the interviews. So it appears as if it's a conversation with 3 identical looking people at once, but that's the magic of the edit. And so there are artworks that are very much about identity, but also distinctness and individuality.
Which you do with your
which
three.
is something that I was interested in playing with. Yeah.
And as the novel progresses, you let them come through. It's a bit like a photograph, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being revealed. I feel like you do see them separately in their different experiences and how they relate. Yeah.
And the triplets, their voice on the page, they don't use I until nearly halfway through the novel. There's a particular moment, something happens, and I let them use I at that point, because I really wanted them to start for their voices and personalities to kind of start to shine through.
I don't remember that moment. How interesting. There we go, so you don't remember everything. I do love the way both of you spend a lot of time with your triplets in the natural world. That's just a lovely part of both books, the reading of that. So in the garden of the big house, the boys playing, and they're right by the New Forest, is that right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot there in the garden, and your triplets too on the beach more, we should say Worcester Bay, and the way they collect things, like is it horse chestnut leaves, I think the boys, and the girls are collecting all sorts of bones and bits and bobs and shells and whatnot, and calling them strange names, making them little relics of their games. But can you talk about that? It feels like that was really important to you both to establish that stuff of childhood, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, I was a mad collector when I was little. I had a flower press. I mean, I was a total nerd. But I kind of wanted
Tracy's nodding a lot.
I kind of wanted to recreate that sense of wonder about the natural world with the boys. And because for their whole lives, up until really the start of the book, they haven't been allowed to leave the grounds. They can explore the forest a little bit beyond the grounds, but they definitely haven't been allowed to go into the village. And that changes as the story begins. But so the natural world is kind of their playground. And it's also really important to me as a writer to always establish a really strong, palpable sense of place, to put the reader into that setting as if they're experiencing it through all their nerve endings. But, this is also a fairy tale, I think, a dark fairy tale. There are lots of threes. There are three boys. There are three mothers. There are three parts in the book. There are three books within the book. And they live in the forest. They live in the New Forest. They do not have conventional parents. So I wanted to inject these sort of notes of darkness within the natural world too. So when the boys are out, poking sticks into the long grass in the garden, there's always the danger of adders being there. Or when they're collecting mushrooms to help the stew go further that their mothers make, there's the danger of death caps or false death caps, which aren't the same as real death caps, but which are also poisonous. Or they find on their walks in the forest, they find a fallen stag's antler, a discarded stag's antler, and they sort of fight over who's going to keep this sort of bony relic. So I really like, playing with the dark in the natural world as well.
Yeah, and it's all there.
And that kind of speaking to the sense of threat and unease that runs through the book.
True, and that comes up in yours too with what they collect, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much. Your triplets and my triplets. They're both. They're
we should get them
all,
together.
I know.
Good friends.
I know. They're all interested in kind of creepy, spooky, scully, deathy things.
Yeah.
As well, aren't they? They're, mine are cutting up a kitten. Dead kittens that they find with their mother's sewing scissors.
Yeah.
Yours are.
Mine would never do that. That's sick.
I know. Mine grew up with a scientist in the house, So, and like your triplets, my triplets, their world is delineated, and in their case, in my triplets' case, it's don't go through the tunnel. So don't go through the sea tunnel. Stay on the Worcester Bay side. You can go anywhere you like. Bugger off, but get out of the house, as I was always being told as a child. Get out of the house, but don't go through the tunnel. So I too was really interested in the curiosity and the wonder of children, curious children left to their own devices, and I think that's something that drives my novel. It kind of propels it forward with a kind of an energy of those triplets. They're kind of always whizzing around and poking their noses into things, and what? I too was a collector, so one of my weird little collections was I wove a little bag out of wool and I sewed felt onto the back, and I had a little drawstring, and in it I collected diamonds. They were from the road where lots of traffic accidents happened on the corner near our house, so I would collect the diamonds from the gutter and I would keep them in my little bag. It was pink wool, green felt, blue wool drawstring. So yes,
Okay.
a collector.
Okay, lovely. Have you still got those?
No.
Oh, sad. You might be rich.
So we used to holiday in Turangi every year on the shores of Lake Taupo when I was little, and I always used to take a little bottle and fill it with lake water and label it with the date that it was collected. And I've still got one of them. The water has completely dried up, but it's like this. It's kind of like holy water.
Yeah.
So it's
Nerd.
It's the collecting and the naming of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, isn't it? That's the magic of their fairy tale world. It's just fantastic reading. You've both got readings to bring to us now. So shall we start with yours, Tracy?
Sure. Okay. I'm going to read to you from a chapter early-ish in the book, and it's from the triplet point of view. So in my novel, I have, as well as my triplet point of view, which is a triple we point of view, I have two other points of view, so three different points of view. That of Marie Curie, the scientist who lands in this household. Maybe we'll get to that. And the triplets' mother, Mattie Loverock. But I'm going to stick with the triplets for now. This is a chapter called Cabinet of Wonders. And so just past the reading I'm going to give you, my triplets start their collecting. They start talking about their collecting and how they put all their weird things into this reliquary. However, I'm going to give you the moment before that. The sound of a bicycle bell ding, ding, dinging down the road, closer and closer to home, wakes us. We leap from bed at our father's familiar morning call, rally, 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 rat bags, and slither bed warm into our knickers and vests, then run through the house and stop in a pile by the front door to step our feet into cold canvas slippers. We open the door and there is our mother, propping her bicycle against the veranda post, home and weary after her long night shift at the baby hospital in Newtown. She bends to kiss each of us in turn, then straightens to kiss our father last and longest. We watch her pause at the lady's door, that's Madame Curie, listening but not opening it. Her doctoring bag looks heavy in her hand, unbalancing her. On the first few days of the lady's visit, our routine was abandoned, but today it's business as usual, starting with the calisthenics that our mother and father insist on for health and vitality. We step off the veranda past our mother's big black bicycle and sing our way into the day. We sing an exercise song, wind, rain, sun, fog, calisthenics, whatever the weather, as we march across the road to the beach through the low dunes and onto the flat of the tide-wet sand. Our father is close behind us, his long-ago wrestler's belly, now a pie, pork and beer belly, barely contained by his neck-to-thigh black stretch woolen swimsuit. Look at him, the fluff of his chest, the wire of his legs, the ham of his arms, and look at the three of us. What a fine advertisement for modern life we make. Our sleek, strong limbs brown to the edge of our vests, our lily-white torsos underneath. We warm up, reaching for the sky, touching our toes. We spread our arms and legs, and in that shape of stars we jump. Breathe deep, rat bags, our father puffs at us. Assimilate the ozone. As our father struggles and huffs and star jumps, his bits and pieces flop about under the sweat-dampening wool of his costume. We giggle to see it, though our mother would tut us. Penis and testicles, girls, she'd say, penis and testicles, the latter within the scrotum. Nothing to chuckle at, half the world has them. We mirror our father, arms up and back, legs jump and bend and spring. Feel how strong your young bodies are, like iron, like steel, the strength and grace of Monsieur Eiffel's tower. Magnificent ratbag youth, feel that steel spring in your step. We feel it, even without our Father's insistence. We feel our strength, the whole length and breadth and height of our bodies, and beyond them, where our power spreads like light, like air, as we stretch and fold and jump and bow and run and shout and fill and empty our lungs on this grand beach, on this bright morning, in this, our 8th year on this wonderful earth.
Oh, lovely. My microphone. I think I've lost it.
Oh, no,
Can
I
you
think
still
it's...
hear me? Oh, you can? Serious? God, it feels like...
It's a bit light. Do you
It's
want me
all
to
right.
get up and adjust?
No, don't. We're reading from you, Catherine, and then we'll move.
Okay, so interestingly, my triplets are also doing their morning exercise.
They might have talked before.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
We didn't about the
email,
readings.
email.
Yeah. This is entirely coincidental. So every morning the triplets have to do their morning exercise to try to ward off the bug and to stay as healthy as possible. So they go out into the garden to do this. And just before this scene, William has had a dream that is quite troubling to him about a girl running naked through a forest. And the boys are starting to have dreams about this same girl in different settings. Like it's quite a positive... pleasurable dream for Lawrence, and for Vincent it's kind of neutral, and for William it's kind of a nightmare, and they can't figure out why they're having this same dream. Captain Scott is the name of their home. Okay, we did our press-ups and star jumps, shaking off the cold of the March morning. A half moon still hung in the sky, which always seemed wrong, no matter how many times we saw it. We squinted and tried to make out the flags our mothers had told us were flying up there, the American, the German, and the British, planted into the moon's dust in 1957. Later, as we waited in the library for lessons, William started asking about Lawrence's dream again, but Lawrence busied himself with choosing half a dozen coloured pencils from the treacle tin and sharpening them one by one. He was blushing, though, blushing about the girl with no clothes on. I wandered to the back of the room and peered at the photographs that hung next to the equipment cupboard. For as long as I could remember, we'd lined up outside once a year so Mother Morning could take a picture of us all for Dr. Roach's records. She used a big proper camera, every home had one, and we stood in a row by the lavender beds. I looked at the photo from 3 years earlier, back when we must have had 40 boys left. I could see the Jones twins, the Brown quads, the Smith triplets, all gone to the big house in Margate. John Wilson and David Collins, who had no brothers, so everyone felt sorry for them, but at the same time didn't want to be their friend, also gone. Paul Brown was wearing the Aaron jumper Mother Knight had knitted him for his birthday. He loved it so much he wore it till the waistband unravelled and the cuffs rode way up past his wrists. Richard Jones had removed his glasses, but his brother hadn't. They'd always tried to differentiate themselves in little ways. Roger Smith was grinning from ear to ear because he knew what William was going to try. And there he was, my beautiful brother, at both ends of the long row of boys. First he'd stood on Mother Morning's far left, smiling for the camera, and then, as it panned across us, he'd sprinted to her far right. But who was the boy next to me? And the one next to him, for that matter? I realised I couldn't remember their names now that they'd gone to Margate. Could barely remember them at all. And no newcomers had joined us in years. At Captain Scott, we were the last. "Right, boys," said Mother Morning when she arrived for lessons. "Take out your work, please. We've a lot to get through today. How are we feeling? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed?" Yes, we nodded. No problems. No real problems. I felt a little flutter in my chest.
Wonderful. Thank you. I like how those two overlap. And there was, maybe you didn't see that email, but Tracy spotted what you were reading, Catherine. And she
okay. Right.
Then it's reading too. So I like the way they're overlapping and that comment about the modern world, the triplets and the modern world. So the modern world of your book, of Wonderland, is 1912, of course. So we're heading into World War I. and there was, of course, World War II to come. So, yeah, right on the cusp there, that beginning of that period of the 20th century. Of course, the modern world in your book is the 1970s, but not quite the 1970s as we know it, because you've had the world wars, but World War II is finished early. Something happened to Adolf Hitler, and it ended. So you've changed history a bit, and that's affected then that modern world, hasn't it? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I wanted to make it a recognisable world, but not quite our world. And so, yeah, the kind of precipitating event for that was that one of the real assassination attempts on Hitler at the end of 1943 is successful, and after that a treaty is drawn up between the various powers, and kind of grudging concessions are made on each side, and it is agreed that there will be a sharing of scientific information, medical research. That means that much bigger advances are made much sooner. So in that extract that I read, you heard about the moon landing happening earlier, and that it was a kind of a joint project between the Americans, the Germans, and the British. And I didn't want to kind of do a whole lot of plodding exposition about that. I just wanted to drop in little clues that this is not the world as we know it quite. So little clues like the one in that extract seemed to be the lighter touch that I wanted for that different world.
And a big part of this world is the science, the advanced science, which is influencing what's happening to the boys and around those scenes in that house, isn't it? So
yeah,
and it's the negativity of that world, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my publisher calls this book, for marketing purposes, I suppose, the third in a trilogy about 20th century totalitarianism. And I didn't have that in mind when I set out to write it, but I agree that, in fact, that's what I've done, you know, because I wrote 2 books set in Nazi Germany, The Wish Child and Remote Sympathy, and this book really is something that's grown out of the research that I did for that. Research over 17 years, if I count up how long it took to write those 2 books and research them. And when I was writing Remote Sympathy, which is set in and around Buchenwald concentration camp, it touches on the medical experiments that happened at the camp. And I kind of couldn't quite let that go. And I couldn't quite let go of that terrible question that there is no answer to, which is, what do we do with that research? And is there ever a time or an ethical reason when we can use it? You know, in fact, a lot of it was fake science anyway, and is no use whatsoever. But some of it may be, but can we ever touch it?
Can be brought back in.
Yeah.
And so, Tracy, yours too, there we are at the beginning of the 20th century with discoveries, scientific discoveries kicking in. And you have Madame Curie randomly dropped into New Zealand.
Randomly?
Love that. I love it.
Randomly? How very dare you?
Short time. Well thought through, of course, by GPT. No, I'm joking. Tell us about that. So that's science, which you're a scientist, so obviously you wanted to pull that in.
Yeah. One of the very first kernels of this book was discovering that there was a Wonderland amusement park in Wellington on the Miramar Peninsula. This is the cover image is from a postcard into Papa's collections. You know, this was the actual Wonderland. That it was there. It was just down the road from where I had lived, and I had no idea about it. And once I decided, I'm getting to the point. Once I decided I wanted to write about Wonderland, it kind of all the ideas start to ping off each other. I'd been collecting snippets about the interesting lives of interesting women, many of whom were scientists, because I used to be a scientist, and so that was kind of in my world, I suppose. I was collecting them for a rainy day. This felt like the rainy day. I wanted to explore that sense of wonder. The real Wonderland gave me the timeline of 1907 to 1912, which was roughly when the real Wonderland was there, and it happened to coincide with that before the war's era. It was a time of great scientific discovery. It was a time of great public and general interest about scientific discovery as well. Okay, so it was a time of expositions and exhibitions all around the world. These big kind of really popular, they were amusement parks in their own right in a way. Curiosity parks, say, these exhibitions and expositions. So it felt like that was the right kind of world to be exploring ideas about wonder and scientific curiosity. Now, it also happened that among the women scientists who had kind of caught my attention over the years was one who'd been with me since I was a child and had the Reader's Digest books for children digest version of Marie Curie's biography. And so it just so happened that there was a moment in 1912, well, actually for most of the year of 1912, when Marie Curie in real life went AWOL. She was gravely ill. She was the subject of a huge scandal. So she went off grid. She disappeared. She travelled incognito. And I thought, I will have that. I will bring her here. What would happen if instead of going to the UK, as she did in real life, what about if I bring her here? What happens then? So this happens then.
Yeah, that's marvellous, really. And I guess that's the thing with amusement parks. They're strange things, aren't they? They're fun. They're thrilling for families, and that era people would land there and it would be entertainment for the day. But they're also got all the freakish and weird things going on, like triplets that you can look at, or strange. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and in real life, my kind of catch cry, in real life, amusement parks did have multiples, twins and triplets and quintuplets on show. People would pay, the punters would pay to come and see the triplets. And I drew some of that language in Wonderland from real advertisements and descriptions of the day. You can see advertisements in the Wellington newspapers for Wonderland, and some of that language I drew straight from there. Cast off your dignity. Wonderland, winter Wonderland at Miramar, the Mecca of merry souls. Wonderland by night is an exquisitely beautiful sight, extending high in the dark night sky, myriad sparkling lights. Straight from the ad. There's this beautiful language, but there is also this strange creepiness, particularly, I suspect, as these amusement parks moved beyond their heyday in that kind of pre-war period, and perhaps started to get a bit seedy and a bit down at heel. Yeah.
And you had some charming characters there too, like Jane Deere, the Camellia. I loved it, and the woman balloonist appears.
Yeah.
All this pseudo-science, partly science, interesting, freakish, weird things, and fascinating and thrilling, all together mixed up in the amusement park world. Very cool. And we'll move on from Wonderland briefly, but come back. So your amusement park, Catherine, was Dreamland, which the kids dreamed of going to. And it was this, again, a magic place, wasn't it? With the fascinating and the thrilling, yeah? Was that based on a real one?
Yes, I knew that I wanted the boys to have this sort of potential reward that they long for. Every child in the homes, the Sycamore homes as they're called, longs to recover from the bug and to go to Margate, which is by the sea, and the boys have never seen the sea before. But it also is home to Dreamland, which is a real amusement park. And I looked at several different, coastal seaside resorts. But as soon as I started reading about Margate and about Dreamland, I thought, of course, this is what I've been looking for all along, because dreams are such an important part of the book. The boys' dreams are recorded in a ledger every morning, and kind of analysed by the mothers and by Dr. Roach. And so obviously it had to be Margate and it had to be Dreamland because of that resonance within the book. And the other thing I found when I was researching Margate was that there's this incredible place called the Shell Grotto, which was discovered in the 19th century and is this underground series of passages and chambers that the walls and ceilings of which are decorated with these intricate mosaics of millions of shells, and nobody knows how old it is, whether it's thousands of years old or just a couple of hundred years old. Nobody knows who made it. And that kind of figures as a setting in the book as well as something mysterious that the boys want to see. And it just also plays into this idea of knowledge and lack of knowledge in the book. The idea that there's this place right under your feet that is magical and strange and mysterious, and you could walk right over it and never know that it's there. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so, Wonderland, back briefly, that was also real, as we now know, because you found out about it. You heard about it one day and knew you had to write about it. And again, similar, everything you write about in there, they were all true, all those acts?
Well, most of them. Some of them are from up here. So Jane Deere, the cameleer, is an invention.
Oh,
There were camels. There were camels there, but she was a character
There were real camels.
There were real camels at Wonderland. Yes, in the ads, camels, camels, camels! Exclamation point. So Jane Deere was just a name that came to me, and she ended up kind of requiring a bigger role in the story, as it turned out. But most of them are based on newspaper ads of the time and the wording of those newspaper ads, or newspaper kind of reviews. People going to Wonderland and saying, well, you know, the Fabulous Chromes, the musical act, were marvellous, and this was marvellous, and that was marvellous. There were more odd acts and oddities that were displayed or that were at the real life Wonderland that I toyed with using, but decided not to, because they were darker than I wanted them to be. There was darkness that I didn't want to introduce.
Such as?
There was the Cornish pixie. Okay, so the Cornish pixie was was displayed, and it was a Cornish pixie. That was the story. It had been found by a captain, a sea captain, and he displayed it around the world. And he was Captain whatever his name was, I can't remember now. Turned out to have been a monkey that had been stuffed, and it had different body parts put onto it and sort of dressed up.
I would have used that.
I know. I went down a whole Cornish pixie rabbit hole at one point, and I thought, you know what? I don't want the Cornish pixie. I don't need the Cornish pixie.
Yeah.
Catherine can have the Cornish
Thank
pixie.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're near the end. Sorry, I'll stop you sadly on the Cornish pixie. But to Catherine, what are you working on now? Because it leads nicely into another sideshow.
It does, yeah. So when I was researching Margate, I stumbled across this fleeting reference to a sideshow in the 1930s called The Starving Bride. And I don't know if you have those moments when you're researching and you think, I've been looking for that and didn't know I was looking for that. And so I started researching The Starving Bride and what it was. And yes, it did happen in Margate, but it was also much more popular and huge in Blackpool, whereby in the 1930s, a young woman dressed in a bridal gown would lie in a glass casket and starve for around 30 to 40 days, and people would come to see her get smaller and smaller, which is horrible, but wonderful. And so originally I was going to write it set in the 1930s, and then I thought, actually, no, this is now, and this is where we're going, that there's still that kind of idolisation of the emaciated female form. So it's set in the near future in Blackpool, and it's about a young woman who comes to Blackpool where the council have decided, okay, the city is down on its luck, we need to do something, we need to appeal to the sense of nostalgia. We'll revive all the cancelled old dodgy sideshows, and The Starving Bride is one of them.
Amazing. Okay, so out later this year.
In October, yeah.
In October, brilliant. Tracy, quickly, and I know because, quick's hard, but 1 minute. Tell us about what you're working on.
Oh, what I'm working on. I've just started doing a PhD at the International Institute of Modern Letters to write my 4th novel. It's going to have science. It's going to be set in Wellington. It's going to be set in the close past and in the close future, and it's about the ocean.
There. Brilliant. I love it. Thank you very much.